Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm going to give this a whirl. I'm going to try to focus and not repeat myself over and over and over again for one of my short videos, because this is important, and I want to say this, and I know that abolitionism is not a cult and that people don't just do whatever I tell them to do. Oftentimes I have to fight pretty hard, even within our own ranks, to get some things changed or some agreement along the lines of what phrases we use and what phrases we don't use and certain terminology over others. And right now there's a lot of controversy and there's a lot of debate going on between abolitionists and pro-lifers. That's always been the case. This is not a case of infighting. People don't understand. The pro-life movement and the abolitionist movement are not rightly understood part of the same movement. The abolitionist movement was not started by anyone coming out of the pro-life movement. It wasn't started within the pro-life movement. It literally was started by a Christian who repented of their own abortion apathy. They were not involved in any pro-life things, and they just looked at their lives, they looked at the world around them, and they said, who are my neighbors? Who am I to be loving as I love myself? And they saw the preborn human being being murdered in the place of the incarnation, and considered the fact that Christ said to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And that led to seeing the preborn human image bearer as a image of God being murdered in the place of the incarnation, where Christ entered our world, where Christ was knitting together a little blessing, right, for a person who was being fruitful and multiplying. Just saw in abortion the antithesis of Christianity and said, I want to fight abortion. Looked at the pro-life movement, studied it to figure out where he could plug in to repent of his abortion apathy and take action to protect his preborn neighbors, found that the pro-life movement was neither biblical nor wise nor strategically effective, and so reignited the abolitionist movement that was set against chattel slavery, the slave trade, infanticide, gladiator games, and various other evils cyclically throughout time, all the way back through the prophets and to Moses and probably before. And that's where the abolitionist movement came from. I have it on very good record. So it did not start out of the pro-life movement. And so all of the fighting between abolitionists and pro-lifers is not infighting, and it's not division. It's not a house that's getting divided against itself. It literally is people who want to abolish abortion, who want to take the laws and the protections, the special murder rights for mothers, and criminalize those laws, bringing preborn human beings under the same laws as born human beings, and that is laws that are equally just, that do not show partiality to the born over the unborn. That's what the abolitionist movement is focused on. The abolitionist movement is focused on justice. We are a pro-justice movement. Yes, we are pro-life in the sense of we do love life. You know, in the whole choice of choose life or choose death, we're for life. We're on the life side. We do want to save babies. But we believe that the key to saving babies is establishing justice. In fact, we don't believe that you can really protect babies or save them without establishing justice. And that if you don't establish justice, the establishment of injustice is one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, that causes these babies' lives to be in jeopardy. So that is what the abolitionists believe. Pro-lifers On the other hand, and this is important, and this is where we need to be very careful and precise in our language, because we are trying to persuade pro-lifers to agree with us on justice. And we need to properly, fairly, lovingly, accurately, intellectually, rightly describe their position. Pro-lifers are not pro-abortion. They are anti-abortion. They are pro-life. They want people to choose life. They want babies to be protected. And they might even, I think they are desirous of equal protection. They want babies to be protected equally. Where they disagree with abolitionists is on criminalization, on justice. They think that you can get equal protection without seeking equal justice. But we gotta be honest. Whenever you're trying to persuade a pro-lifer, you need to never, ever call them pro-abortion. Now, by implication of their anti-justice views, they may be unintentionally protecting abortion, keeping abortion legal, but they are not pro-abortion, right? To say they're pro-abortion is to speak to their motives. So I do not think that it is ever good, and I so much think this, that you can look through all of my stuff, hundreds or thousands of hours, thousands of posts, and you will not see me saying that pro-lifers are pro-abortion. You will see me saying pro-lifers are anti-abolitionist. And that's not just because I have discerned this, that is what they themselves say about themselves. The pro-life establishment, the leaders of the pro-life movement, who say that they're speaking for tens of millions of pro-life Americans, they say that they are anti-criminalization of abortion. 72 pro-life leaders got together, wrote an open letter opposing bills of abolition being filed in the United States of America. They sent this open letter to state lawmakers stating unequivocally, like clearly, strongly, unapologetically, we oppose the establishment of any law that would criminalize the act of abortion if that law would give penalties to mothers who committed the act of abortion. They believe, and they said in the letter, that no mother anywhere, for any reason, should ever face criminal prosecution, be put on trial for the murder of their preborn child. But they affirmed in that letter, and they affirm everywhere else, that they are pro-life and they are pro-saving babies. They just think wrongly that you can save babies and also establish unequal justice, right? Giving protection to murderers. Not only acquitting the guilty, but actually giving the guilty protection from governing authorities who would seek to bear the sword of justice against them as evildoers. This is a commitment of the pro-life cause. Before they wrote that letter, going all the way back to 2010, I, after studying the pro-life movement, believed that to be their position. And as I was beginning the abolitionist movement, I was telling people all the way back, and you can just go all the way back, go to the Abolish Human Abortion, use the Wayback Machine, look at the old websites, the old videos, the old posts, telling people that when it comes time to start filing bills of abolition, it will be the pro-life movement that opposes them. Not because they aren't pro-life, but because they are anti-abolition. They are anti-justice. Because you can see all throughout their literature for the past at least 3 or 4 decades, you can see in their literature antagonism against the idea of equal justice under the law, right? You see it Like, the defining characteristic of all pro-life legislation is that abortion is bad. We want people to choose life. We want to protect babies. But abortion is not murder. Because if they thought abortion was murder, there's only one thing you do with murder, and that is criminalize it. And after looking at hundreds of bills, hundreds of campaigns and projects and books, none of them were seeking to criminalize abortion. They were all seeking to somehow save babies without abolishing abortion. This was very clear to me back in 2010. That's why I did not join the pro-life movement after I repented of my abortion apathy. But back to this current debate. 3 things. Never call pro-lifers pro-abortion. They are pro-life. They do want to save babies. And that desire to save babies is, more often than not, coming from a very good place. It's rooted in love. Their motives, even if they're mixed, are pure, at least in the sense of they do not want people murdering their babies. They are not pro-abortion. They are pro-life. This does not mean that they're pro-justice, and that does not mean that they're pro-abolition. If they're a leader in the pro-life movement, chances are they're not just not pro-abolition, they are anti-abolition. They may want abolition, by which they mean like no abortion, but they are anti the thing that would abolish abortion, which is criminalizing it. Which is why we use the word abolition in the first place. We're not using the word abolition just to connect to older movements. That's not why we're using the word. We're using that word because it is the proper word, right? So they are anti-criminalization, anti-abolition, because the laws protecting, these are unjust laws, the laws protecting the special murder rights that mothers have in this nation and so many others need to be abolished. They need to be stricken. Abolition bill removing the right to murder babies via abortion from the murder code in state after state, or in the United States, or in whatever country you're trying to abolish abortion. It's criminalizing it, removing it from the code, abolishing it, right? Secondly, the pro-life position is not pro-abortion, but you might rightly consider it a pro-choice position. But be careful how you say this. Saying that a pro-lifer is part of the pro-choice movement would be false. But pointing out that a pro-lifer is focused on retaining the choice, right? Keeping abortion from being criminalized keeps it a valuable choice. Like, we don't want you to do this. We want to save the babies. We want the babies to be protected. We do not want you to choose abortion. But if you choose abortion, you will not get in trouble, right? That's keeping it a viable choice. Like, it's leaving it on the table to be chosen. So the pro-life position is, at base, fundamentally or ultimately, a pro-choice position. But again, it's pro-choosing life. So it is still pro-life and not pro-abortion. Never call pro-lifers pro-abortion. Lastly, I've already said it, but I want to say one, just make sure that it's crystal clear. Pro-lifers are actually desirous of equal protection. Truly. They truly are desirous of equal protection. They just believe that you can get equal protection without establishing equal justice. I believe there's a lot that could be said about where this comes from. A fear of man, fear of the world, a desire to fit in, a crafting of their strategy under the belief that, like, seeking justice is too harsh, or all of these things that the pro-lifers say. I think that's worked into it, which you can't let such concerns decide what you should and shouldn't do. You should and shouldn't do what you're doing based on whether it is true and good and biblical, and whether God's on the side of that thing or not. That's what you should be doing. But I think it comes from a desire to sort of like please the world, or say what you think is going to work in the world. But doing what God says is always best and will always work. right? Doing what the world wants you to do might keep you employed, but it's not going to ever work. The other thing that I think has happened is that the pro-life movement has, in large part, been infiltrated by a feminist ideology, a belief and an acceptance of the idea that somehow women are being victimized by our culture more than they are sinners, just like men in our culture. This sort of feminist ideology that all the evil things that happen to women because of men, right? Women are victims of the patriarchy. And so pro-life movement leaders and a lot of the pro-life movement's approach is clearly informed by a feminist ideology. That's why you see protect life and protect women, protect babies and protect women. Sometimes it'll be protect women and babies. And so this desire to protect women from these evil, bad people that are forcing them to get abortions, which are providing the abortion to them. There are evil people forcing some people to do abortions, but by and large, that's not what's fueling the abortion industry, right? This desire to protect women from the abortion industry is also, lo and behold, what's fueling the pro-life leaders' opposition to the abolition movement. They desire to protect women from the abolitionist movement. When the abolitionist movement isn't even saying, let's go after women and women alone, we're saying, let's just establish equal justice under the laws. The laws against murder should be applied equally to all people. It doesn't target the woman. It doesn't even really target the preborn human. It says human beings should all be treated equally. And the act of murdering human beings, whether you're murdering a born human being or a preborn human being, are the same and should be treated the same, right? The same act, the same punishment. And whenever we try to do that, when we're just, it's insane. We're trying to propose a law that just says, here in this state, here in this nation, here on this continent, you shall not murder a human being in the womb, because the human being in the womb is the same as a human being outside of the womb, made in the image of God, and you cannot murder them, right? Like, we're just saying this should be the law, this should be what tutors the culture, and this should be what governs the culture, right? Establish that law. We're not targeting women, but the pro-life movement, through their feminist lenses, sees the abolitionist movement as though we're some kind of bloodthirsty cult of He-Man woman haters that are out to, like, be the patriarchy or whatever they think. But to get back to the point of this video and to conclude it here, the pro-life movement, for all its problems, is not pro-abortion. And I think it's hard to persuade them whenever they think that all we're saying is, well, you guys are really pro-abortion. That's not persuasive, because that's not true. They are not pro-abortion. What we need to be saying is, you're pro-life, you want to save babies' lives, you want to protect them. Listen to my argument. You cannot have equal protection without equal justice. You cannot save babies without criminalizing the act of murdering them, right? We need to make those arguments. If we just say, oh, you're pro-abortion, they have reason not to take you seriously because they know that they are not pro-abortion. So, never call any pro-lifer pro-abortion. If you do say, hey, your view ultimately ends up keeping abortion legal, and so by implication, you are providing the legal protections for abortion, then please explain yourself. Don't just say they're pro-aborts, because there are pro-aborts. There are people who are literally pro-abortion, and there are people who are very much anti-abortion. And then there are people who are anti-abortion and also pro-justice. And what happens with these three groups of people, when you really look at them on the question of justice and whether justice should be established equally for born humans and unborn humans, what you find is that the abolitionist says yes, and the pro-lifer and the pro-choicer both say no. That's an anti-abortion person and a pro-abortion person together being opposed to justice and abolition, opposed to criminalization. So, properly speaking, pro-lifers are anti-abortion, but they are anti-justice, which makes them anti-abolition, because the abolitionist movement is not a part of the pro-life movement. It is a pro-justice movement. I hope all that made sense. Thank you for watching.